Hi friends, my name is Jake. Welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're taking a look at a knife by REVO. Yes, another one. This is called the Warden. It is an assisted knife. So, spring assisted in Canada? Why, yes. Spring assisted knives, or should I say some spring assisted knives, are legal in Canada, according to some rulings that some judges have made in cases where assisted knives have been where stores have been charged with having illegal knives, and the assisted knives were then deemed okay by judges. That's what I'm trying to say. There's a big difference between assisted and automatic. Automatic knives are knives where you either have a button or a switch that you slide or press, and that makes the blade come flying out. An assisted knife is where you start pushing the blade out. You start making the blade come out, and once it's moved a certain distance, then a spring takes over and makes it open the rest of the way. Usually, it's the thumb stud that you push on. So in this case, you start pushing on the thumb stud and then it takes over and flies out. Stonewash blade, 9CR18 MOV stainless steel, decent budget stainless steel. Pocket clip right and left, deep carry, tip up. It's not a small knife. My hands are just within the extra large range and it's quite comfortable. Although smaller hands will definitely find this knife very comfortable as well. So if you're in the market for this, I'll give you all the specs, the prices, where you can get it, stuff like that. And hopefully you'll enjoy this video. And hopefully there won't be too many more before I get that camera that I'm working on. Thank you for those who have supported me by donating funds towards the camera. Let's get to the tabletop and take a close look at this puppy. So here is the knife. You can see the stonewash finish on the blade there. It's a drop point here with a swedge. A saber grind, which is a flat grind that doesn't come all the way to the spine. A nice tip here for piercing work. There's these G10 thumb studs. Very small screw in there. We've got a big sharpness choil here, which isn't quite big enough, doesn't come quite far enough out onto the blade. G10 handle scales, they're a flat G10 with milled sections. You can get it in this brown and black. Don't be surprised that it's not gray. If you go to a website and buy this because the picture looks like it's gray, no, you're going to get a black one because there's only those three colors, black, this brown, and a bright blue. Unfortunately, a lot of websites have got pictures that look gray. It looks like it's actually a fairly light gray, very much this color, which is not what you would be getting. Open pillar construction, kind of different from what you usually see. They've just got those lines milled straight across on them. Pocket clip is right and left. It's a fairly big pocket clip. Button screws, but the pocket clip is far enough off of the handle so that every time I've tried it, it goes totally deep into the pocket. And the hole on the other side for it, if you want to change the sides, there's no plate here for covering it up. We've got pivot screw that is, it's got a divot on this side, nicely made, looks quite good. And the other side has got the screw on it. It's with that divot or concave grind inside the pivot screw, that makes that screw susceptible for stripping out because you can't get a screwdriver very deep in there. The screwdriver will only go in a very shallow ways, and that's going to be easy to strip. I have not taken this knife apart yet, and two of the screws are quite badly chewed up. The screw on the pocket clip here, the one that's closest to the fold here on the clip, it's in very bad condition. This one here is also chewed up somewhat. I think that's the one that it is. Yes, that's the one. The others look okay. They are button screws that are inset, which I don't prefer, but yeah, they're fairly soft screws. Those are T6s. On the back half of the handle, that's a T8. and that's a T4. All of them are quite loose. There's a fair bit of play when you put the screwdriver in, and there you go, put it in. It's got a fair bit of play, more than it should have. Well, I can't really say should have, more than a lot of screws have. So you have to be very careful when you're taking these out. Make sure you keep adequate pressure downward into the screw while you're taking it apart. Let's look at the size comparison with the Ontario Rat 1. Line up the pivot screw here. Oops, there's a magnet sticking out there. That's why it looked odd over there. And yeah, it's definitely a smaller knife. It's still a knife that fits in my hand. My hands are just into the extra large range, and in a reverse grip, you've got that much sticking out. A pull grip, quite comfortable. In a saber grip, you still have a little bit of the handle out here. So if your hands are just within the extra large range, yeah, this will fit you, and smaller hands are going to have a lot of comfort with this knife as well. Let's talk about the specifics on this thing. The blade first. We've got some jimping on the spine here that is quite shallow, so it's not an aggressive jimping. It does help a bit with having some grip in your thumb, but not an awful lot. I would have liked that to be just a little bit more aggressive. The thumb studs here, I actually don't mind them at all. They're not in the way. They're a decent size. When you go to open the knife, the thumb sits right along those steps there, and you can put pressure to start to release the knife, and that's a very good thing. I like round metal studs as well, but this isn't bad. And they haven't come loose or anything during my tests or anything, so that's a good thing. They don't get too much in the way of slicing, although they line up, about a quarter of an inch you lose if you're going straight down on something that you can't pull through. But I don't mind. I will take it apart and show you exactly how that is made. And I may as well do that right now. So here's the knife taken apart. I didn't take the G10 off this side. Perhaps I should, but you can see this sticking out right there, that little pin right there. That's on a spring, or that wire is a spring, I should say. And that's what propels the blade out. It sits in that little hole right there on the side of the blade. We've got a hidden, there it is, the hidden stop pin in there. It hides in that, right around the pivot. There's a circular or half circle. It hides right in that spot. It's not totally hidden, but that's where it hides. And yeah, let's take this apart. I'm going to do that after all. These screws do not have Loctite in them, which is a blessing. So that stopped me from stripping any screws. Okay, it came out now. So yeah, I'm very thankful that there was no thread locker in there, because that would have totally been impossible to take this screw out then. So yeah, the screws are a bit soft. A couple of them were a little bit stripped at the factory, so it makes it hard to take it apart. And I wanted to show you the spring in here. So here we go. There's the spring, and it fits in the G10, the milled out section there. And yeah, it's got some freedom to move in there, but that spring gets compressed. It gets squeezed this way when the knife gets closed, and it wants to, of course, expand. And when you start pushing the blade out, it goes flying out. So let's put this back together, and I'll reassemble it, and we'll get back to the review. All right, it went back together without much difficulty at all. So let's talk a little bit more about this pivot. To have it loose enough, the pivot screw, so that the knife easily comes flying out, there is a very tiny bit, it's very, very small, a tiny bit of side-to-side blade play, and that's because those washers are so small in diameter. If they were wider in diameter, let's say they didn't try to put the stop pin so deeply hidden, if they put it up here on the spine of the handle instead, they could have had wider washers, and that would hold it better. And if they're properly lubricated, those wide washers can still allow for very easy blade deployment. So there's that. Lockup positioning is very good. There's lots of room for that to wear across over time. There's nice jimping on there, so the lock release. So to get your thumb in there to release the lockup is easily done. The alignment when it's closed, it's a little bit to this side, fairly close to even, far from being rubbing on either side, so I don't mind the blade alignment. Decent knife. Functional? Yes. Does the spring assist work well? Yes. I did not test it without the spring yet. Very often spring assist knives are terrible without the spring. Usually the detent is the main problem. Are there any hot spots on the handle? No. The spines have been softened. They've also been stone washed, so there's no issues there. The G10 is rounded all over, which is very nice. I already showed you all the different grips, so it's comfortable that way. The pocket clip, it's a little bit big for this knife, but not a problem. I would rather it was a bit smaller, but it's not a big deal at all. It wants to climb over any pants pocket when you want to put it in your pocket, so it's really easy to use. It goes to the full depth, and doesn't hang up on those button screws at all. Just a little bit sticking out of the pocket. You've got the R for REVO knives lasered into the steel there. Other than that, it's a stonewash pocket clip. Let's go over all the sizes, dimensions, and that kind of information. I'll leave this on the screen while I'm talking about those things. The weight of this knife, it's 92 grams, which is 3 1/4 ounces. So yes, it's a nice light knife, even without the skeletonizing. They could have done more skeletonizing because the balance point is right there. And if they would have skeletonized it a bit, they could have brought the balance point here. I like it to be just behind the pivot pin. But this isn't bad, especially since the knife is only 3 1/4 ounces, so I'm not making a big deal of that at all. The sharpness from the factory, most knives that I've reviewed are better. About 200 best, 200 and less is considered sharp in most circles, so it's not bad. The sharpening, I'll talk about that in just a second. First, some more dimensions. The cutting edge length, 77.22 millimeters, which is 3.04 inches. The blade length, tip to the closest spot on the handle, 78.16 millimeters, 3.077 inches, so just a tiny bit longer than the cutting edge length. I wish that this thing was just under 3 inches instead of just over 3 inches. A lot of you who live in jurisdictions where there's 3-inch laws know why I say that. The blade thickness, the tang of the blade here, 2.96 millimeters, that's 0.1165 inches, so just a bit under 1/8 of an inch, not much. The blade depth, the widest point is right here at the heel of the blade, 23.1 millimeters, which is 0.9095 inches, so just about an inch. The thickness of the edge behind the grind, I measured about 1/3 of the way up here, about 1 inch in from the heel of the blade. That is 0.49 millimeters, 19.5 thousandths of an inch. That's very good. 20 thousandths of an inch and less is what I'm looking for, and this is just within that range, so good. The grind angles, 16.4 degrees on the side that says REVO, 22.2 degrees on this side. If you don't count the last 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch at the heel of the blade, it's quite a bit of variability there, and a little bit of variability up here. Not a big deal. It can be sharpened pretty good, but because of the small sharpness choil, you will end up having some evidence of not good sharpening at the heel of the blade. Some more measurements. The blade length, 11.255 centimeters, which is 4.431 inches. The grip area, it's roughly 9 centimeters, about 3.5 inches. Very good. The handle thickness, not counting the pocket clip, 12.71 millimeters. That's 0.5005 inches, so half an inch. The handle depth, it's widest right back here, 24.36 millimeters. That's 0.959 of an inch. When the knife is closed, the deepest section, or the widest, is right about here, 26.42 millimeters, 1.04 inches. And the total length of this knife is 19.05 centimeters. Oh, I did it again. I didn't put the actual inches. It'll be on the screen, but it's just at 7.5 inches. So yeah, it's a decent knife with decent specs. Nothing super special, nothing terrible. I've been noticing that some people are saying 9 Sierra 18 MOV is a super steel. Well, they don't use the word super steel, but they say it's a high-end knife steel. And no, it's not a high-end knife steel, but it is definitely a good budget knife steel. I like 9 Sierra 18. It's a good steel, better than 8 Sierra 13, which I also like, by the way. It's got a lot of chromium in there, about 18%, which is what the 18 stands for, which makes it very corrosion resistant. The 9 CR means that it's got 0.9%, it's actually about 9.95% carbon in there, which helps make it nice and hard and durable. Rockwell hardness on this thing is usually around 59, give or take a little bit, which makes it a good steel. It performs well. The edge lasts for quite a while. It's not crazy hard to sharpen. It's not super easy to sharpen either, but it's decent for sharpening ability. And it looks good. You can get a nice mirror edge on this steel. It's a good choice. There's a lot of Chinese steels that are actually quite good indeed. The pros and cons, summarizing all of those. I'm not the biggest fan of assisted knives, but assisted knives, I don't hate them at all. I don't really dislike them. I don't collect them. But this one's a pretty good one. The spring works well. The knife comes flying out. Lockup is quite good. Like I said, tiny bit of side-to-side play, no up and down play, just fine. You can get rid of all the side-to-side play, but then the blade doesn't fly out with that much authority. It slows down because of friction. The handle's comfortable. A couple little things I'd like to see different. I'd like to see a little plate in here, like Ganzo does on their budget knives, and this thing's like twice the price of most Ganzo knives, so I would have liked a plate there. I would like better screws, a little bit harder screws that don't strip out as easy. I'd like a pivot pin that doesn't that is D-shaped so it doesn't spin freely. Slightly bigger washers. I don't mind washers at all. I have no problem with knives that have washers. The clip, yeah, it's a little oversized for this knife, but not a big deal. It didn't create any hot spots in my hand. It doesn't flatten out at the top, but still, it did, like I said, no hot spots for my extended use. It's a decent knife. The jimping here is useful. The jimping here could be a little bit more aggressive. Not a big deal. These studs here, yeah, I would have liked something in there that would keep that sleeve from spinning, but it's able to be tightened up if you do take it apart. I would suggest that you don't take it apart unless you absolutely have to, because there is a chance that you might not be able to get it to tighten up. So all in all, actually not quite all in all, I haven't talked about the price yet. Is this knife worth its price? Well, what's the price, you say? So the price for this is $64.99 Canadian at integrityknives.com, which is in Canada, Ontario, Canada. So you're going to have to pay Ontario's tax on top of this, but you can get 10% off with coupon code CCE. And so that makes it the cheapest Warden in Canada. You can get this at other stores in Canada, but once you put the discount code on, it's going to cost more than this. So you might as well use my discount code if you're in Canada and want to buy this. If you buy this knife outside of Canada and it gets investigated at the border, you won't get it. The border guys think all assisted knives are more than illegal. They're worse than flipper knives from their perspective. So it's a good idea to get this from within Canada. It is available at White Mountain Knives for Americans. I did not find this at any stores in Europe. So what do you think of this? What do I think of this knife? You can tell me what you think of the knife down below. What I think of this knife, it's okay. I'm not giving it any special extra high marks, but it's not a fail either. It's a reasonable knife. Maybe it's a little bit overpriced in Canada, but you know, what knife isn't overpriced in Canada? So if you are shopping within Canada, check out integrityknives.com. They're getting more and more stock all the time. It's a young store that's less than a year old, so check them out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And I hope to get my camera soon. Thanks for all the support I've gotten for that. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb. Bye for now.